Thank you. And then we'll go into a panel.
So I'll probably be pretty brief here. So it's the ninth inning, and I'm pinch hitting for Heather Hardman, who's supposed to be doing this talk, right? And there's a guy named Jamie Cleveland who provided me with a deck about an hour ago. You guys are going to enjoy this. I'll be brief, right? So anyway, but I would like to tell you a little bit about, so I'm basically an embedded systems product development guy. Spent a lot of time in IT, a lot of time in OT. In the last 4.5 years with Duke, I've been a cyber guy, right? And we have a lab in Mount Holly, North Carolina, where I'm in this emerging technology organization. We built a microgrid out there. I love this thing. It's, look at them all as a collection of actors. We have PV, we have battery, we have all this stuff, and we've been working on a concept called the open field message bus, where these guys all work together, all these boxes, inverters, meters, they all work together to do an autonomous function, which is to optimize this microgrid. So it runs on its own, and we can island, disconnect from the grid, reconnect, this kind of thing. So this ties into the smart city, because recently I read a piece of work, a white paper out of MIT's Lincoln Labs, and it has to do with the city of Boston. And they've gone and went through the exercise of chopping Boston up into 26 microgrids to figure out what happens. So, you know, Hurricane Sandy kind of things, you've all heard about all this. What happens if they lose a 26th of Boston, and can the rest of it keep going? I also run around in these cybersecurity groups. I go to a lot of cyber meetings, and I love smart city. You know, don't get me wrong, but it can be very, very scary, actually. Yesterday we had a panel on smart city, and it was a doom and gloom panel, kind of a DARPA thing, where lights go out across the whole country. This is going to be a positive panel. I don't want to go negative, but lights out, complete country, and then DARPA's working on what's the restoration and how long will it take to bring it back. And they're trying to keep it all back within 7 days. But, you know, I personally don't believe that's fast enough. So my take on the work, that the deck I'm getting ready to show you, and a few things that Heather handed off to me. She sent me an email and basically said, good luck, right? No, not quite that bad. So you made a comment. So this microgrid is it's a system within a collection of systems. The system above it in the grid is the feeder or circuit segment, a segment above it. And above that can be multiple substations working. And they're all kind of working together and coordinating. And the view is all this becomes autonomous over time. We end up maybe with transacted energy sometime in the future. With Duke and Avista here, we work with Avista. We're trying to figure out what the platform of the future will look like in order to manage the grid more efficiently. So, I mean, we're working hard on this. We think about this every day, how to make the grid more resilient, how to handle the transactions, how to be autonomous, how to be peer-to-peer, and not, you know, SCADA, I came up with this today in a talk that I gave, SCADA, supervisory and data acquisition. Drop the control. The control goes out unless a human needs to take over. So normally it's supervisory control and data acquisition. But in the future, maybe it just becomes observing what's going on and the rest of the grid is running autonomously. So now move that over to the city. You have your hands full of city stuff here for sure, because you've got all these disparate networks, and they all need to be brought together, I would believe, in some sort of common way if you want to optimize it. So the smart city people in the last couple of weeks have asked our group to come in and look at the cyber angle for what you're getting ready to deploy, right, except in the Charlotte area. So the note from Heather said, please make sure that the smart cities people know that the energy sector is right in the middle of all this. And, you know, water is important, transportation important, services is important, but the energy group here, Duke Energy, we have a program there called Envision Charlotte, which we're working on this. Now, how hot and heavy they're working on this, I don't know. I also know that we have a group called Jules, where we bring in a bunch of suppliers in the area, or actually around the country, that want to participate in sort of a venture funding thing with Duke Energy. And inside of this program, they're focused on a lot of stuff that has to do with smart cities. So I have a deck later that I'll show to you on that one. And then I think that's, yeah, Heather's last 3 points were, these are ongoing projects inside of Duke at the moment. EV charging scattered around town. We have a guy in our group, Mike Rowan, who's working on what will that standard look like in the future. Because, you know, this is a massive, all of a sudden, amount of energy that's needed in order to run EV on a major scale in a city. The other point that she told me to stress is fiber. Don't allow this digital divide to happen in your cities. Everybody needs Wi-Fi, everybody needs hotspots. We need fiber runs in order to have data access for everyone in our city, or we end up with a divide. The other point she mentioned was data, 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 but I took that to mean I want to optimize this function, I want to optimize the city, so collect as much as you can. Yeah. All right, so this next deck, no, this is not the right deck. This is the presentation I gave 30 minutes ago. So anyway, I can tell you a little bit about Duke. I thought we were number 2 in the world. I thought we were 2, but I guess you're 2. We have 7.5 million customers. No, I meant US. We have 7.5 million. We have 50 gigawatts of generation. We have 3 gigawatts of renewable energy. And at that point, it's the wrong presentation, so I'm not going to take you through this one. This is a cybersecurity presentation I gave an hour ago. So I would say then, I think we'll wrap this up, you know. The presentation that I remember that I gave from yesterday, that's Jamie Cleveland's, has to do with smart poles. We have smart poles on the tops of poles. We have Wi-Fi. We have cellular. We're trying to build an infrastructure of connectivity through the poles that we own, right? The other big piece, I don't know, are you guys in the utility sector? How many? Well, I know we have one. Utilities. Did you guys know that on the very top wires is where the energy flows? If you look at all the poles as you're driving around in your neighborhood, if you have not underground, you have overhead stuff, there's 3 lines running down, right? And that's where the electricity is. The one right below that's a neutral. All the other stuff on the poles are owned by the utility and they're rented out to the cable company, the telephone company, and all of these spots. Every foot or so has value, right? Each value as you go down this thing. So it makes complete sense for the utility to be involved to put Wi-Fi hotspots on these poles and to put cellular connections and these kind of things. So also running out of in the lab in Mount Holly, we have these display panels that we're putting up on the poles that would go in the middle of a city. And in the middle of the city, you know, they're to advertise events or activities that are coming. So Duke is really big in rolling this out. The other thing that's happening to us with the grid being turned kind of upside down from distributed generation, all this distributed generation coming in all over the place. The grid was built, this picture was about showing that the grid was built with central generation pushing electricity out in one direction. But it's starting to now, for the first time ever, to flow back toward the generation facilities, right? So it creates a real disturbance. So since the grid's being turned upside down, you know, what is happening is all this DG is coming in and we need to manage it in some good way, right? So, yeah. On that note, then, just since this one's not going to be the right one, I thank you for your attention, and let's do some questions.